Mayday, mayday, mayday. A flight simulator. Hero takes control. Chapter 1, Turbulence and Terror. Simon fidgeted in his airplane seat, boredom gnawing at him like a persistent mosquito. The return flight from Greece felt like an eternity compared to the excitement of arriving for the summer holiday. He glanced out the window, watching the cotton ball clouds drift lazily across the endless blue canvas of the sky. Below, the Aegean Sea sparkled like scattered diamonds. Suddenly, a jolt rocked the plane, throwing passengers off balance. A chorus of startled gasps filled the cabin. The overhead announcement crackled to life. The pilot's voice strained. "Apologies for the unexpected turbulence, folks. We should be back to smooth sailing shortly." But smooth sailing never came. The turbulence intensified, the plane bucking like a bronco. An acrid smell of vomit began to permeate the air. Muffled groans and panicked whispers rose from various corners of the cabin. Simon's parents, his face pale, gripped his hand tightly. His older brother James, usually a chatterbox, whimpered, clutching his airplane travel pillow. A wave of nausea washed over Simon, but he forced it down. He wasn't one to succumb to air sickness. He noticed the flight attendants scurrying through the aisles, their faces grim, their movements sluggish. A growing unease settled in Simon's stomach. This wasn't normal turbulence. This was something far more sinister. Panic began to rise in his throat as he witnessed several passengers doubled over, their faces contorted in pain. Chapter 2. A pilot down, a gamer up. The once lively cabin was now a scene of chaos. Moans and cries for help filled the air. The pungent smell of vomit intensified. Simon, his own fear momentarily subdued, noticed the lead flight attendant, Christine, a woman with a calm demeanor even in normal circumstances, now pale and sweating. "Christine!" he called out, his voice surprisingly steady. Christine stumbled towards him, her eyes wide with alarm. "What's happening?" Simon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Christine leaned in, her voice hoarse. "Food poisoning. It's hit most of the passengers and both pilots are incapacitated." Simon's heart hammered against his ribs. Incapacitated pilots? A cold dread washed over him. He knew then with a chilling certainty that this was a real emergency. But amidst the rising panic, a strange sense of clarity bloomed within him. Hundreds of hours spent glued to his computer screen, piloting virtual planes on Microsoft Flight Simulator, flooded his mind. He knew the Boeing 737's layout like the back of his hand. Every gauge, every instrument, every button. "Christine," he blurted out, his voice trembling slightly. I might be able to help. I know how to fly this plane. On a simulator, of course." Christine stared at him, her expression a mixture of disbelief and desperation. In that moment, with no other options, she made a split-second decision. "Follow me," she rasped, leading him towards the cockpit door. Chapter 3. Mayday and the Unlikely Pilot. The cockpit was sterile and silent, a stark contrast to the pandemonium outside. Simon's eyes scanned the instrument panel, a familiar wave of comfort washing over him. He knew what everything meant. The airspeed indicator, the altimeter, the attitude indicator. It was just like his simulator, only much more real, the stakes infinitely higher. He strapped himself into the pilot's seat, Christine assisting him with trembling hands. Taking a deep breath, he reached for the microphone. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," his voice surprisingly steady for a 14-year-old boy. "This is Boeing 737, call sign Alpha Bravo Charlie. We have a medical emergency on board. Both pilots are incapacitated. We request immediate assistance." Static crackled for a moment, then a calm, professional voice filled the speakers. "This is Warsaw Air Traffic Control. Alpha Bravo Charlie, please identify the nature of your emergency and your current position. Relief flooded Simon. They had received a response. He explained the situation, his voice clear and concise, detailing the number of sick passengers, his lack of formal piloting experience, but emphasizing his extensive knowledge of the Boeing 737 through flight simulator experience. Chapter 4. A Tower in Tension. At the Warsaw Airport Control Tower, a flurry of activity erupted. Paul, a seasoned air traffic controller with nerves of steel, felt a jolt of disbelief course through him. A child, claiming to be a pilot, was flying a plane with sick passengers and incapacitated crew. Maintain current heading and altitude. Alpha Bravo Charlie, Paul instructed, his voice calm despite the churning in his gut. He glanced at his co-worker, Anna, whose face mirrored his own disbelief. Can you confirm the status of the pilots? Paul continued, a flicker of hope sparking in his voice. Negative, came the reply from the young voice on the other end. Both pilots are unconscious. Paul swallowed hard. This was a situation straight out of his worst nightmares. A 14-year-old with a joystick at home, controlling a Boeing 737 full of sick passengers. He needed to verify Simon's claims and assess the situation quickly. Alpha Bravo Charlie, Paul said, his voice firm yet encouraging. Can you tell me what you see on your instrument panel? Specifically the airspeed indicator and the altitude indicator. Simon, his mind racing, relayed the readings with surprising accuracy. A small smile touched the corners of Paul's lips. This kid clearly knew his stuff, at least theoretically. Chapter 5. A Shared Flight. Over the next tense moments, a hesitant trust began to build between Simon and Paul. Paul, assuming the role of remote co-pilot, guided Simon through a series of checks, ensuring the plane was still in a stable flight path. He explained the importance of maintaining altitude and airspeed, the critical factors for keeping the plane airborne. In the control tower, the atmosphere was electric. Other air traffic controllers gathered around Paul's station, listening intently to the exchange. News of the situation had spread like wildfire, and tension crackled in the air. Meanwhile, Simon, fueled by a cocktail of adrenaline and surprising calmness, focused on Paul's instructions. He carefully adjusted the control yoke, his fingers surprisingly steady, despite the weight of responsibility on his young shoulders. Good job, Alpha Bravo Charlie. Paul's voice crackled through the speakers, a hint of admiration replacing his initial skepticism. You're doing great. Now we need to prepare for landing at Warsaw Chopin Airport. Chapter 6. A Hero's Landing. Paul, drawing on his years of experience, began guiding Simon through the complex procedures for landing a Boeing 737. He explained the approach pattern, the use of flaps and landing gear, and the importance of maintaining a smooth descent. Back in the cabin, the atmosphere was a mix of fear and hope. Passengers, pale and weak, looked towards the cockpit door with a flicker of curiosity in their eyes. Christine, ever the professional, did her best to calm the worried passengers, assuring them that help was on its way. On the ground, emergency crews were already mobilized. Fire engines, ambulances, and police cars lined the runway, a testament to the seriousness of the situation. The news of a child piloting the plane had spread like wildfire, captivating the entire city. Inside the cockpit, Simon, following Paul's instructions with laser focus, began the descent. The familiar landmarks of Warsaw slowly came into view, a mixture of relief and terror washing over him. He was bringing the plane down, but the landing, the most crucial step, remained. Chapter 7. Touchdown and Applause. Paul's voice crackled with calm instructions, guiding Simon through the final stages of landing. With a gentle bump, the plane touched down on the runway, the wheels screeching to a halt. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the control tower. Outside, the emergency vehicles roared to life. their flashing lights illuminating the night sky. Slowly, the cabin door opened, and Christine emerged, a weak smile on her face. A medical team rushed in, tending to the sick passengers. As the passengers disembarked one by one, they looked toward Simon with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Some even offered hesitant words of praise, their voices weak but sincere. Simon, still shaken but overwhelmed with relief, simply nodded, his heart swelling with a sense of accomplishment he'd never known before. Chapter 8. A media frenzy and a hero's welcome. The news of the heroic teenager who landed a plane full of sick passengers spread like wildfire. Reporters thronged the arrival lounge, eager to interview the unlikely pilot. Simon, surrounded by his relieved and proud parents, found himself facing a barrage of questions from enthusiastic journalists. Microphones thrust in his face. He recounted the events in a calm, almost robotic manner, the adrenaline slowly fading from his system. Despite his initial shyness, he couldn't help but take a certain pride in what he had achieved. He had faced his fears and, through his knowledge and a bit of luck, had saved the lives of everyone on board. Back in the control tower, Paul watched the news coverage unfold with a smile. He knew in that moment that he wouldn't just remember this as a harrowing incident, but as a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the unexpected places where heroes can be found. In the coming days, Simon became a national sensation. He was interviewed on national television, his picture plastered across newspapers. Flight simulator companies showered him with sponsorships and invitations to industry events. But amidst the whirlwind of fame, Simon never forgot the terror, the responsibility, and the immense trust placed in him. The experience left a lasting impact. While he reveled in the initial hero worship, a seed of seriousness bloomed within him. He realized the true weight of piloting an aircraft, the immense knowledge and training required. The glamour of being a hero pilot started to pale in comparison to the respect he felt for the real pilots who navigated the skies with skill and precision every day. Chapter 9. A change of course. Months after the incident, Simon sat at his computer, the familiar flight simulator screen glowing in front of him. But this time, it wasn't just a game. He was enrolled in an online ground school course, the first step towards becoming a real pilot. He devoured the lessons, his virtual flying experience now complemented by a thirst for actual aeronautical knowledge. The controls felt different now, imbued with a new respect for the real-world consequences of every move. His parents, initially hesitant, watched with cautious pride. They had worried the experience might deter him from flying altogether. But instead, it had ignited a deeper passion, a drive to understand the science and skill behind piloting a real plane. Chapter 10. Legacy of the Unlikely Pilot. Years passed. The Mayday hero incident faded from the headlines, replaced by newer news stories. But Simon never forgot. He continued his studies, his dedication unwavering. He aced his flight tests, the thrill of taking to the skies in a real training aircraft unmatched by any simulator. Finally, the day arrived when he donned his crisp pilot's uniform, the weight of the golden wings on his chest a symbol of his journey. Standing by the plane he was about to pilot, a Boeing 737, a shiver of déjà vu ran down his spine. This time, though, he wasn't a scared boy facing an emergency. He was a pilot, ready to take to the skies with confidence and the knowledge that heroism wasn't just about a single act, but about the dedication and skill that followed. As he taxied down the runway, a news report flickered on a screen in the airport terminal. It was a story about a young boy who, inspired by the tale of a hero pilot, had enrolled in flight school. Simon smiled, a secret shared between him and the future pilot on the screen. The legacy of the unlikely pilot, the boy who saved a plane with a joystick, lived on, inspiring a new generation to take flight. Mayday, mayday, mayday. A flight simulator. Hero takes control.